She didn't hesitate when she said it, and somehow that made it worse. My ex dressed better, made more money, and treated me better. The words didn't come out in anger. They came out calmly, like she was stating a fact she had already accepted. And in that moment, standing in the kitchen of our Scottsdale townhouse, I realized I wasn't being compared. I was being measured, and I was losing. Her name was Sloane Harrington, and she had a way of speaking that made everything sound reasonable, even when it cut straight through you. I remember looking at her, try to find something in her expression that suggested regret. But there wasn't any, just clarity. The kind of clarity people have when they've already made a decision long before they say it out loud. I set my coffee mug down slowly, careful not to let my hand shake. Then why aren't you with him? She paused. Not long, just long enough to make me feel like she was deciding how honest she wanted to be. Because I thought you were different. Different. Not better. Not stronger. Just different. And suddenly, I understood something that hadn't been clear before. I wasn't the upgrade. I was the experiment. We had been together for almost 2 years. 2 years of dinners in places that required reservations weeks in advance. 2 years of quiet mornings, weekend drives, conversations about the future that felt real at the time. Or at least I thought they did. My name is Carter Whitfield, and I don't come from nothing. I built a consulting firm from the ground up. Not flashy, not loud, but stable, predictable, safe. And maybe that was the problem. Sloane didn't want safe. She wanted something that made her feel like she was moving forward, even if it meant standing on unstable ground. I leaned against the counter, watching her like I was seeing her for the first time. What exactly are you saying? She crossed her arms, not defensively, but thoughtfully. I'm saying I don't feel like I'm growing with you. Growing. Another word that sounded harmless until you realized what it implied. I was holding her back. That being with me meant stagnation. Or maybe, I said slowly, you're comparing me to someone who no longer exists in your life for a reason. Her jaw tightened just slightly, not enough for most people to notice. But I noticed, because I'd spent 2 years learning every small reaction she had. You're making this about him. No, Evropia. I'm making this about you. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had moved in just enough to make breathing slightly more difficult. Before we go further, let me ask you something. If someone you loved compared you like this, calmly and without hesitation, would you try to prove your worth? Or would you start questioning why you were still there? She walked past me, picking up her phone from the counter like the conversation had already ended in her mind. I think we both know this isn't working anymore. There it was. Not a discussion, a conclusion. And I realized something in that moment that shifted everything. She wasn't asking for change. She was asking for justification. Justification to leave. I nodded slowly, not because I agreed, but because I understood. You're right. She looked up surprised. That wasn't the response she expected. What? You're right, I repeated. This isn't working. For a second, she looked almost unsettled, like she had prepared for resistance, for negotiation, for emotional pushback, but not for agreement. Carter. No, I said gently but firmly. You've already made your decision. I walked past her this time, heading toward the hallway. Not in anger, not in frustration, just clarity. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something that wasn't tied to her approval. Relief. I packed slowly. Not everything, just what I needed. A few suits, my laptop, documents, the essentials. She stood in the doorway at one point, watching me. You're really leaving? I zipped the bag. I think that's what you wanted. Her expression shifted. Not to sadness. Not quite. More like confusion. As if the version of me she had constructed in her mind wasn't matching what she was seeing. I didn't think you'd just walk away like this. I paused, looked at her. Neither did I. That was the truth. Because a week ago, I would have stayed. I would have tried to fix it. Adjust. Improve. Compete with a ghost. But something about the way she said it. It removed the illusion. And once the illusion is gone, you can't put it back. I left that night. No dramatic exit. No slam doors. Just a quiet departure that felt heavier than any argument could have. I moved into a short-term rental across town. Minimal. Clean. Temporary. Just like everything else had started to feel. The first few days were strange. Not painful in the way I expected. Just quiet. Too quiet. But in that silence, something else began to take shape. Perspective. I started looking at everything differently. Our conversations, her reactions, the subtle ways she had been pulling away long before that moment in the kitchen. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This didn't start with her ex. It started with her expectations. Expectations that were always moving, always just out of reach. And no matter how much I adjusted, it would never be enough. Because the goal wasn't to be satisfied. The goal was to feel like something better existed somewhere else. 2 weeks later, she called. I didn't answer the first time, or the second, but on the third I did. Hey, her voice was softer. Careful. I've been thinking. Of course she had. I think we ended things too quickly. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city lights through the window. Scottsdale looked different from here. Distant. Detached. Did something change? There was a pause. I just realized what we had was stable. Stable. The same word I had once taken pride in. Now it sounded like something she was trying to convince herself mattered. Before I say anything else, think about this. If someone only sees your value after losing access to you, is that recognition or is it convenience? I don't think stability was ever the issue, I said. Then what was? I smiled slightly, not because it was funny, but because I finally had the answer. You didn't want me, I said. You wanted what you thought I could become. Silence. The kind that confirms more than words ever could. I continued, you were always waiting for me to turn into someone else. That's not fair. No, irreplaceable. It's accurate. She exhaled slowly. I made a mistake. Maybe she did, but not the kind she thought. I don't think you did, I said. I think you were honest for the first time. Another pause. This one heavier. I miss you. I closed my eyes for a moment. Not because I felt pulled back, but because I remembered what that sentence used to mean and how much weight it used to carry. I believe you, I said. But missing me isn't the same as valuing me. That was the difference. And once you see that difference, everything changes. I don't think we should get back together. She didn't argue this time. Maybe she understood. Or maybe she just didn't have another angle left. Okay. And just like that, it ended. Not with anger. Not with betrayal. But with clarity. The kind of clarity that doesn't hurt as much as it settles. Weeks passed. Then months. Life moved forward the way it always does. Quietly. Consistently. I focused on my work. Expanded the firm. Took on new clients. Built something that wasn't dependent on anyone else's validation. And somewhere along the way, I stopped thinking about her. Not intentionally. Just naturally. Like a chapter that had already been read. Complete. And understood.